angles of two infinite triangles. The cross, which in the French language seems to be the first root and fundamental substantive of the verb croire, meaning to believe, and the verb croître, to grow, thus reuniting the ideas of science, of religion, and of progress. The great magical agent reveals itself through four types of phenomenon and was subjected to the groping of the profane sciences under four names: heat, light, electricity, and magnetism. It has also been given the names of Tetragrammaton, Inra, Azoth, ether, Od, magnetic fluid, the soul of the earth, serpent, Lucifer, etc. The great magical agent is the fourth emanation of the life principle, of which the sun is the third form. See the initiates of the School of Alexandria and the doctrines of Hermes Trismegistus. Thus, the eye of the world, as the ancients called the sun, is the mirage of the reflection of God, and the soul of the earth is under the permanent gaze of the sun, which the earth perceives and keeps through impregnation. The moon takes part in this impregnation of the earth by sending the earth a solar image during the night, so that Hermes was correct in saying, when speaking of the great agent, the sun is its father, the moon is its mother. He then adds, the wind carried the great agent in its belly, because the atmosphere is the recipient of, and like a crucible for, the sun's rays, and through the great agent, with its continual outflows of currents, which are analogous to those of the sun itself, is formed that living image of the sun which entirely penetrates it, enlivens it, fertilizes it, and determines all that is produced on its surface. This solar agent lives through two contrary forces, a force of attraction and a force of projection, which is why Hermes says that it always goes back up and comes back down. The force of attraction is always fixed in the center of objects. The force of projection is fixed on their contours or their surface. It is through this dual force that all is created and all subsists. Its movement is successive and indefinite, or rather simultaneous and perpetual, rolling and unrolling through spirals of contrary movements which never meet. To understand the movement of this terrestrial sun, so as to be able to benefit from its currents and direct them, is to have accomplished the great work, and it is to be master of the world. Armed with such a power, you can make yourself adored. The vulgar will believe you to be God. The absolute secret for directing the currents was possessed by a few men, and can be found again. It is the great magical arcanum. It depends on an incommunicable axiom, and on an instrument which is the great and unique Athanor of the Hermetics of the highest grade. The incommunicable axiom is enclosed Kabbalistically within the four letters of the Tetragrammaton in this manner. In the letters of the words Azoth and Inra, written Kabbalistically, and in the monogram of Christ, as it was appended in the Labarum, and which the Kabbalist Postel interprets with the word Rota, with which the adepts formed their tarot, either spelled T-A-R-O or T-A-R-O-T, by repeating the first letter twice, to indicate the circle, and have it understood that the word is inversed. All of magical science consists in this understanding of this secret. To have this knowledge and to dare to use it is omnipotence in human affairs. To reveal it to the profane is to lose it. To reveal it even to a disciple is to abdicate in favor of that disciple who, for that moment, would have the power of life and death over his initiator. I speak here from the magical point of view, and will certainly kill him out of fear of dying himself. This has nothing to do with acts treated as murder in criminal law, which serve as a basis and starting point for our laws and ignore instances of murder through bewitchment and occult influences. We enter here into strange revelations, and may expect every expression of disbelief and the shrugging shoulders of fanatic disbelievers, because the religion of Voltaire also has its fanatics. Apologies to the great shades who must now be sulking in a pathetic manner within the vaults of the Pantheon, while Catholicism, always strong due to its practices and its prestige, praises them. The perfect word, that which is adequate for the thought it expresses, always contains potentially or supposes a quaternary, the idea of those three necessary and correlative forms, and also the image of the thing expressed with the three terms of judgment which qualify it. When I say being exists, I implicitly affirm that nothingness does not exist. A height, a width, which the height divides geometrically in two, and a depth separated from the height by the intersection of the width. Such is the natural quaternary composed of two lines which cross each other. There are also in nature four movements produced by two forces which support each other by their orientation in opposite directions. Yet the law which rules objects is analogous and proportional to the law which governs intellects. And the law which governs intellects is the very manifestation of the secret of God, which is to say, the mystery of creation. Suppose a watch with two parallel springs, with a gear which makes them move in opposing directions, so that one, in extending, contracts the other. Such a watch would wind itself, and you would have discovered perpetual motion. This gear must work in both directions and be of great precision. Is it nowhere to be found? We do not believe so. But when someone will have discovered it, he will be able to understand by analogy all the secrets of nature. Progress as a direct result of resistance. The absolute movement of life is the perpetual result of two contrary tendencies which never oppose one another. When one of them appears to yield, it is a spring which stretches, and you can expect a reaction whose timing and character is quite possible to predict. It is thus that, during the era of the greatest Christian fervor, the reign of the Antichrist was known and predicted. But the Antichrist will prepare and determine the new occasion and the definitive triumph of the man-God. This is also a rigorous and Kabbalistic conclusion which is contained in the premises of the Gospels. Thus, Christian prophecy contains a quadruple revelation. First, the fall of the ancient world and the triumph of the gospel under the first coming. Second, the great apostasy and the arrival of the Antichrist. Third, the fall of the Antichrist and the return of Christian ideas. Fourth, the definitive triumph of the gospel, or the second coming, designated by the name the Last Judgment. This quadruple prophecy contains, as we can see, two affirmations and two negations. The idea of two ruins or universal deaths and two rebirths. Because for every idea which appears on the social horizon, we can assign without fear an Orient and an Occident, a zenith.
Aram is a George Soros agent for Dominion Voting Systems. He's low IQ and he's low T. He doesn't get laid. He's always angry. He's pathetic.
You're just gonna boom him down and not let him have a voice? This is the sort of censorship that's ruining America. Unbelievable. I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, pedestrians on the street are all horrible. All drivers are horrible. All people who ride the metro in Washington, D.C. are horrible. I mean, we could just keep going.
All Americans are horrible.
Yes.
Do you see what America does
And
on
a
the
NATO.
national stage?
It is in that way that the philosophical cross is the key to the prophecy. And we can open all the doors of science with Ezekiel's pentacle, whose center is a star formed by the crossing of two crosses. Is not human life also formed by those three phases, or successive transformations: birth, life, death, immortality? And notice here that the immortality of the soul, required as the complement of the quaternary, is proven Kabbalistically by analogy, which is the unique doctrine of the truly universal religion, just as it is the key to science and the inviolable law of nature. Death, in fact, can no more be an absolute end than birth a real beginning. Birth proves the pre-existence of the human being, since nothing is produced from nothing, and death proves immortality, since being cannot stop being any more than nothingness cannot stop not being. Being and nothingness are two absolutely irreconcilable ideas, with the difference that the idea of nothingness a totally negative idea, comes from the idea of being itself. Thus, nothingness cannot even be understood as an absolute negation, while the idea of being can never even be compared to that of nothingness, and it is even less the case that it can come out of nothingness. To say the world came out of nothingness is to utter a monstrous absurdity. All that is proceeds from what was. In consequence, nothing that is could ever not be. The succession of forms is produced by alternate movements. They are the phenomena of life that replace one another without destroying themselves. Everything changes, but nothing perishes. The sun does not die when it disappears at the horizon. The forms, even the most mobile ones, are immortal and subsist always in the permanence of the raison d'etre, which is the combination of the light with the powerful aggregates of molecules of the first substance. They are also conserved in the astral fluid and can be evoked and produced according to the will of the sage, as we shall see when we examine second sight and the evocation of memories in necromancy and other magical operations. We will come back to the great magical agent in the 4th chapter of the Ritual, where we will finish describing the characters of the great arcanum and the means of seizing this formidable power. Let us say a few words here about the 4 elements of magic and about the elementary spirits. The magical elements are, in alchemy, salt, mercury, sulfur, and azoth. In the Kabbalah, the macroprosopis, the microprosopis, and the 2 mothers. In hieroglyphics, the man, the eagle, the lion, and the bull. In ancient physics, using the vulgar ideas and terms, air, water, earth, and fire. In magical science, we know that water is not ordinary water, that fire is not simply fire, etc. These expressions hide a higher meaning. Modern science has broken down the 4 elements of the ancients and has found many so-called simple bodies. What is simple is the primitive substance properly so called. Thus there is only one material element, and this element is always manifested by the quaternary in its forms. We will thus keep the learned distinction of the elementary aspects as accepted by the ancients, and we will recognize air, fire, earth, and water as the 4 positive and visible elements of magic. The subtle and the thick, the rapid solvent and the slow solvent, or the instruments of hot and cold, form in occult physics the 2 positive principles and the 2 negative principles of the quaternary. Air and earth thus represent the male principle. Fire and water belong to the female principle, since the philosophical cross of the pentacles is, as we have already said, a primitive hieroglyph, an elementary lingam of the gymnosophists. These 4 elementary forms correspond to the following 4 elementary ideas: spirit, matter, movement, and rest. All of science, in fact, is an understanding of these 4 things, which alchemy reduces to 3: the absolute, the fixed, and the volatile, and which the Kabbalah relates to the actual idea of God, which is absolute reason, necessity, and liberty, the threefold notion expressed in the occult books of the Hebrews. Under the names of Keter, Chachma, and Binah for the divine world, Tiferet, Hesed, and Gevurah in the moral world, and finally Yesod, Had, and Netzach in the physical world, which, along with the moral world, is contained in the idea of kingdom or Malchut. We will explain in the 10th chapter of this book this theogony, which is as rational as it is sublime. The created intelligences, having been called forth during emancipation by trial, were placed from their birth between these 4 forces, the 2 positive and 2 negative ones, and immediately began to affirm or deny the good, to choose life or death. To find the fixed point, that is to say, the moral center of the cross, is the first problem given to them to solve. Their first conquest must be that of their own freedom. Thus, certain of them begin by being pulled to the north, others to the south, certain to the right, others to the left, and as long as they are not free, they cannot make use of reason, nor be incarnated in anything other than animal forms. These unemancipated intelligences, slaves of the four elements, are what the Kabbalists call the elementary demons, and they people the elements which correspond to their state of servitude. Thus, sylphs, undines, gnomes, and salamanders truly exist, certain of them wandering and seeking to become incarnate, others already incarnate and living on earth. They are perverted and imperfect men. We will come back to this subject in the 15th chapter, which deals with enchantments and demons. It is also a tradition of occult physics, which led the ancients to admit the existence of the four ages of the world, only they did not tell the vulgar that these four ages had to succeed each other, like the four seasons of the year, and be renewed like them. Thus the golden age is past, and it is still to come. But this has to do with the spirit of prophecy, and we will talk about it in the 9th chapter, which deals with the initiate and the seer. Let us now add the unity to the quaternary, and we will have together, and separately, the ideas of divine synthesis and analysis, the God of the initiates and the God of the profane. Here, the doctrine is popularized and becomes less abstract. The great Hierophant intervenes. Chapter 5. He. The letter E. The pentagram. Gevura. Eche. Up until now we have expounded upon the most arid and abstract aspects of magical doctrine. Here begin the enchantments. Here we can announce wonders and reveal the most hidden of things. The pentagram expresses the domination of the mind over the elements, and it is by this symbol that we enchain the demons of air, the spirits of fire, the specters of water, and the ghosts of the earth. Armed with this symbol and properly prepared, you can see the infinite by using that faculty which is like the eye of your soul, and you will have the legions of angels and columns of demons serve you. And let us first state the principles. There is no invisible world. There are only degrees of perfection in the different systems. Objects and crude representations are like the temporary crust of the soul. The soul can perceive objects on its own, without the intercession of the corporeal organs, through its own sensibility and its diaphane. It can see either spiritual or corporeal objects that exist in the universe. Spiritual and corporeal are words which only express the degrees of subtlety or the density of the substance. What we call our imagination is simply the inherent property of our soul to assimilate images and the reflections contained in the living light, which is the great magnetic agent. These images and reflections are revelations when science intervenes to reveal the object of the light to us. The man of genius differs from the dreamer and the madman only in that his creations are analogous to the truth, whereas those of dreamers and madmen are lost reflections and misplaced images. Thus, for the sage, to imagine is to see, just as for the magician, to speak is to create. We can thus really and truly see demons, souls, etc., by means of the imagination, but the imagination of the adept is diaphanous, while the imagination of the vulgar is opaque. The light of truth crosses one as though through a splendid window, and refracts in the other as though through a glazed mass full of dross and foreign objects.
You owe me what you owe me, and I'm willing to let go of my right.
I picture Randall Rantino.
Meet me halfway. I will meet you halfway. Meet me halfway.
I picture Randall Rantino. I picture Randall Rantino room with
Amazing, you spend all this time criticizing Jews and then you end up just sounding like a bunch of Jews.
What did I say? Oh yeah, he is a Jew. He is a Jew, Edmund.
Pay me my $25, and this whole thing is done, dude.
That's right.
It's done. It's in the past.
Never.
No, okay, then I'm gonna call you out because you
So I just want to address the title. If I may, please mute up. So women today are headed towards an unreturnable disaster event known as Kamalism, otherwise known as Mamalism. I don't know if you've seen the Saturday Night Live skit with the Catholic girl saying Mamala, but we were all in danger of being made into babies. Effeminate LGBTQ CRT BLM. What kicked me?
That which contributes the most to the errors of the vulgar and to extravagances of folly are people's depraved reflections of the imagination. But the seer knows with the certainty of science that the things he imagines are true, and experience always confirms his visions. We will explain in the ritual by what means we can acquire this lucidity. It is by means of this light that static visionaries are able to communicate with all the worlds, as happened so often to Emanuel Swedenborg, despite his not being perfectly lucid, since he did not discern the reflection of the rays and often confused simple reveries with his most admirable dreams. We say dreams because the dream is the result of a natural and periodic ecstasy called sleep. To be in ecstasy is to dream. Magnetic somnambulism is a reproduction and a way of ecstasy. Errors in somnambulism are caused by reflections from the diaphanes of people who are awake, and even more so by reflections due to hypnotism. Dreams are visions produced by the refractions of rays of truth. Reverie is hallucination caused by a reflection. The temptation of St. Anthony, with his nightmares and his monsters, represents confusion between reflections and direct rays. As long as the soul fights, it remains rational. When it succumbs to this kind of invasive intoxication, it is deranged. Untangling the direct ray and separating it from reflection, this is the work of the initiate. Now let us speak clearly and say that this work has already been accomplished by a few elite persons in the world, that revelation through intuition is thus permanent, and that there is no insurmountable barrier which separates souls, because in nature there is no sudden break, nor are there absolute barriers that separate one psyche from others. All is transition and nuance. And if we suppose perfectibility, if not infinite, at least indefinite of the human faculties, we would see that any man can manage to see all, and in consequence to know all, at least in one circle, which he can indefinitely expand. There is no vacuum in nature. All is filled. There is no real death in nature. All is alive. Do you see that star? Said Napoleon to Cardinal Fesch. No,
Love
sire.
the Jews.
Really? Well, I see it.
Love the Jews.
And he certainly did see it. It is for this reason that we accuse great men of having been superstitious. It is that they saw what the vulgar did not see. Men of genius differ from ordinary seers by the faculty they have for making other men sense what they see themselves and to be believed out of enthusiasm and sympathy. They are the mediums of the divine verb. Let us now speak about how this occurs. All the forms correspond to ideas, and there is no idea which does not have its own particular form. The primordial light, the vehicle for all ideas, is the mother of all the forms and transmits them from emanation to emanation. They are only weakened or altered because of the density of the environments. The secondary forms are reflections, which return back to the home of the emanated light. The forms of objects, being a modification of light, stay in the light where reflections refer to them. Also, the astral light or terrestrial fluid, which we call the great magical agent, is saturated with images or reflections of all kinds, which soul can evoke and submit to its diaphane, as the Kabbalists say. These images are always present in us and are only erased by the stronger imprint of the reality of the waking world or by preoccupation with our thoughts, which render our imagination inattentive to the mobile panorama of the astral light. When we sleep, the spectacle presents itself to us, and it is thus that we produce reveries. Reveries which are incoherent and vague, unless some dominant will remains active during sleep and gives, unbeknownst to our intellect, a direction to the reverie, which then transforms it into a dream. Animal magnetism is nothing but artificial sleep produced by the union, either voluntary or forced, of two souls, one of whom keeps vigil while the other sleeps. That is to say, while one directs the other in its choice of reflections in order to transform reveries into dreams and know the truth through images. Thus, somnambulists do not really go to the places where the hypnotist sends them. They evoke images in the astral light and can see nothing that does not exist in that light. The astral light has a direct effect upon the nerves, which are conductors in the animal economy and which carry it to the brain. Also, in the state of somnambulism, we can see with our nerves without even having need for the radiant light, since the astral fluid is a latent light, just as physics has recognized that there exists a latent calorific. Hypnotism, with two participants, is without a doubt a marvelous discovery. But hypnotism with a single participant who renders himself lucid at will and who directs himself is the perfection of the magical art, and the secret of this great work is not lost. It was known and practiced by a large number of initiates, most of all by the celebrated Apollonius of Tyana, who left behind a theory, as we shall see, in our ritual. The secret to hypnotic lucidity and the way of magnetic phenomena is twofold: the harmony of intellects and the perfect union of wills in a direction made possible and determined by science. This is with regard to hypnotism as practiced with several participants. Solitary hypnotism requires preparations of which we spoke in our first chapter, when we listed and showed with all their difficulties the qualities required to be a veritable adept. We will elucidate this important and fundamental point more and more in the chapters which follow. This empire of will over the astral light, which is the physical soul of the four elements, is symbolized in magic by the pentagram. The elementary spirits are also brought under the power of this sign when we use it with intelligence, and we can, by placing it in a circle or on a table of evocation, render them docile, or, as it is called in magic, bind them. Let us explain this marvel in a few words. All the created spirits communicate between themselves by signs, and all adhere to a certain number of truths as expressed by certain determined forms. The perfection of the forms increases with the detachment of the spirits, and those which are not weighed down by the chains of matter recognize with their first intuition if a sign is the expression of a real power or of an imprudent will. The intelligence of the sage thus gives validity to his pentacle.
Relax, bro. I'm not yelling. Relax. I'm relaxed too.
All right, wait. Yo. We're not finna do the relax. I wasn't yelling. Let's just talk. Let's have a conversation. All right.
Okay, cool.
So we asked the question again, doctor.
Sure. All right, cool. Sweet. What is the point of theirs? Theirs is to do what? You want me to say different words this time? No, I want you to. You didn't understand the first time, or what? See what I'm saying? Help me understand. I don't know what you're asking. He's obfuscating now. No, help me understand. I'm gonna say it again. Okay, I'll say it slow this time. It's a place where you can go as an everyday person, and you can report what effects, the negative effects that the vaccine had on you after you took it. Should I say it slower? Did you get it? No, I heard it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good. So let me tell you why Sweet is so damn slow that he doesn't understand why that's a problem. You're talking about qualifying something epidemiologically, right? It's a survey-based way of reporting issues, right? And because it's a survey-based way of reporting issues, I'm going to show you how stupid this is. Sweet. What is the denominator in theirs? What's this? I'm not getting emotional or upset. I'm asking a question. What's the denominator? Listen closely. I don't know.
This N-word
Oh,
is
you
not
don't know?
It's an N-word vaccinologist
I have no
fraud.
idea as in relation to this. I do what a denominator is when talking mathematics. But go ahead and educate us, Doc. Educate us, Doc. Go ahead and educate us.
Okay.
Educate us.
Well, at least you say at least you say you don't know what it is. Okay.
Do you want me to lie? You want me to lie?
No, you good. No, I appreciate it, brother. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Doctor,
I
tell us what
appreciate
it
it.
means.
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Sanders.
Okay, cool. So I will tell you like what a numerator is. That's what it's called, by the way, a numerator. The numerator is the number on the top of the line. The denominator is the one on the bottom.
Okay.
So let's say you see 40,000 heart attacks in bears. You tracking? The number's 40,000. That's the number on the top. We're trying to get a percentage, right? What's the number on the bottom?
The denominator? The
But what?
denominator?
No. But who is making up the denominator group?
I don't know, man.
Nobody.
Anybody come off your mic that's not sweet or doctor, I'm shooting you, man. I'm any
Okay, the
analyst, I don't care who it
denominator
is.
is nobody. You got it.
No, you don't get it. You see, it's
There
going over your head again.
there are no people in the denominator. Right?
There's no denominator, sweet, because that's a
Okay.
survey. Stop talking and listen. This is the problem. There's no denominator, sweet, because just like a Yelp. What's up, bro? Bro, you gotta stop. This is why.
Sweet. What's going on?
This is why. You don't know what a denominator is. Then you're trying to argue with me. You don't even know what like basic math. Relax.
I said okay.
Okay. There's no denominator because just like a Yelp review, there's no body to compare it to. So if you tell me there's 1,000 times in bears people had a heart attack, or there's 200,000 times, or 1,000,000 times, first of all, it's no denominator. So we can't build up a percentage off of this. Is the first problem. The second problem is if you go to the Bears website, the first thing they show you is a big blue fucking box.
Dr. Dumb.
Dr.
Dr. Dumb.
Because you don't read. This is another problem you'll have to issue with because y'all don't want to read. It says you cannot use this to verify information about risk for vaccine symptoms because the reports are self-reported and may be unverifiable or untrue. Scientists use that to detect issues that
He
may
reading.
arise, like with myocarditis, for example. And then they get other cohorts
N-word
that do have
numerator.
denominators to say, okay, what is the percentage of people that get
He
myocarditis?
reading
that get
book.
vaccinated? Which
N-word
ones not?
numerator.
That is the point up there.
N-word
So in your
numerator.
submission, when you said to me 5 minutes, however long it's been, sweet, well, all the people were dying in bears. That single statement shows me that you don't know what you're talking about. And this is what happened for 3 years straight. That's just one thing you said was wrong. I can go through, not that I'm going to take over Lou's, if this is a room about something else, but this goes back to Lou's central point about in the community, right? There is a hesitancy for scientific knowledge and credentialing and degrees. There's no way you can come to the conclusion that you came to if you knew what a denominator was. You don't even know what a denominator is. You're trying to argue with me about the epidemiology of symptoms from a vaccine.
Dumb as a numerator.
That's the problem.
I didn't say I didn't know what the denominator was, bro.
You did too. I asked you.
You said what's the denominator?
Bro, I
Oh,
did.
you said the numerator. You said what's the numerator?
You said
I was trying to understand where you were going.
Dr. Denominator.
Dr.
Dr. Denominator.
Bro, exactly. So that's why I can say what I'm saying. Because you asked me this question out the blue. As if somebody had substantiated anything about whatever I said or blocked anything that I said about what your stance was and the stance you took.
Dumb Dr. Denominator.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying, Lou? You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
telling you.
Wait, hold
And
on,
all those other
hold
people,
on, sweet.
all them other ones in the chat
Hold on,
understood it.
sweet. Let me ask you, all right, Dr. Coven. So, because I feel like there's a feelings thing where, amongst men, I don't really, like, especially if I don't know folks online, like, somebody says something to me, I probably feel some type of way in the moment, but I don't really hold no grudges against men, right? Because I don't really do tone policing. So, I think people hate, based off what I'm hearing, I think people hate your delivery, which I don't care, especially when it comes to, like, vaccine mandates and people dying. People are going to be passionate on both sides, the non-vaxxers and then the people that are pro-vax, right? So we was talking about in the last room about the glorification, right? People was campaigning, right, without the credentials not to take the vax, right? and people have died because of that, right? And then people are making an argument on the non-vax side
Dr.
that
Denominator
there are
killed his
people who are
vax
in position of
patients.
power who promoted getting the vax, and people died because of that. So can we get to that in the misinformation with that? Because I feel like that's what a lot of this shit comes down to. Like a lot of people feel like they blaming the doctors
Yeah,
who promote
N-word
the vax,
doctor.
and then people died allegedly. Because I'm not confirming because this is not my field. And then on the doctor side, they're like, wait, you guys are not qualified to speak on vaccines, and y'all telling people while people are dying because of COVID not to take the vaccine. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, bro. Just briefly, what I'll say is this to that direct to your point. There's like you said, and you displayed that well. There's two camps, right? Camp number one is saying, hey, the medical establishment is fucked
Dr.
up.
Booger Denominator.
Which I go along with. I don't have any problem accepting
Damn,
that. I'm sure
Dr. Booger
talk
Denominator.
shit about how racist and shit the medical system is. If you haven't, I'll say it right there.
Nasal canals.
Right, nah. I literally heard you out my own mouth out of your own mouth call out Purdue Pharma and their role in the opiate crisis and how they I
Nasal canals, Dr. Denominators.
So that critique, I'm not even like
Nasal
like,
canals.
you definitely can make that point.
Dr. Denominators.
To state that. Then on the other side, you have, hey man, listen, we got a pandemic out here that killed two and a half Falcon stadiums worth of dead black people in the first year and a half. You had enough dead black
We don't
people.
believe you, bro.
My brother, that's no problem to black
you. Hey, Friday, bro.
That's okay.
Bro. What the fuck?
That's okay. And I'm glad you said that. You don't believe me. Let's track that down. He didn't say, I don't believe you because I have evidence to the contrary. Here it is. He didn't say, I don't believe you because I have scholarship. I got scholarship. He said, excuse me, he said,
Right, I'm moving you down, bro. Like, let them talk, bros. It's the rules. Now you finna come on stage and scream and shit. Because I just told you not to cut them off. Let them just land, bros.
Well, all I'm going to say is this, man. The point is, look what just happened. I don't like you personally. Therefore, you're incorrect. Right? And this is a problem the black community is going to have to come to the fuck up. I'm sorry. As a group, all of us, me, you, everybody, we're going to have to toughen the fuck up. Do you know how many black people died during COVID because slick talking herbalists who are nice to you?
You the slick talking liar, you fake ass doctor fraud, motherfucking vaccinologist bullshit Pfizer motherfucker, you fucking criminal lying motherfucker. Everybody knows you full of shit. Everybody knows you just run your mouth like you're a fucking doctor.
I know, I'm full of shit. The point I'm making is I got it.
So this is why I don't believe a lot of y'all is because all he doing is bringing up data and facts, and then y'all getting y'all feelings and crash out, bro. It's not. Go to another room. It's not gonna happen.
Gotcha, ass one motherfucker. Got your ass, bitch.
Clarification. We're not finna do this emotional, and then it's the men that's doing. I haven't heard one woman come out their mic and. All right, Dr. Coben.
No, man. All I was saying, man, is that again, and it doesn't matter how I say it. It doesn't matter what I say or how I say it, right? I was in the Army, right? I was a captain in the Army. My job was not to be fucking nice. My job was to make sure the people that were in my charge got back home to their families in one piece or living. Right? So if I need you to do something and we're in a combat scenario, I'm not gonna say, hey Lou, excuse me, how's it going? Hey Lou, do you mind? I'm gonna say, hey Lou, let me tell you something, man. You got enemies over there. Don't go over there. If you go over there, you're gonna die. Go over here. Right? That's it. Simple. I'm not here for your feelings.
And fake.
Right? I'm not here for your feelings. I need to give you the information so that you
What's
can
your
have
commission?
No, wait till he's done. We're centering him, bro. Damn, do emotional shit. Just the title says.
Show us your commission, liar.
Let's about to do emotional shit, crash
I'm
out.
complete. It's okay. I'm complete. I'm complete. Okay, I got a question. Let him go. Let him
Yes,
go.
no, I
got a question for you. Hold on. First of all, you're not a medical doctor, so stop parading like you are.
Who said I was?
PhD.
Who said I was? I never said that.
But you talk as if you are.
What does that mean? How do I talk as though I'm a medical? How does a medical doctor talk?
I can guarantee you right now that it's people in the room. When I just said that and you said I never said that I was, they're shocked right now. They're like, wait, what? He's not a doctor.
You
Lindsay is not a.
You don't know what a doctor is.
He's not a.
No, I just said you might have
Yo,
a
don't
PhD.
mute.
I said you might have a PhD.
I'm not turning the hand
but you're
raising off.
not- but you're
I'm not bringing
a
nobody back
medical
up. Let me say this. I'm
That's
not bringing
what I just
nobody
said.
back up that come off their mic. Cause let's walk this down. Y'all always talk shit about Dr. Copeland, so he's in the building, and he literally wants to smoke. He's saying that y'all can't refute nothing he said in the past, so I'm giving y'all a platform to not do emotional shit, just ask him questions, and y'all can walk him down like y'all say y'all's gonna do. So,
All right, so let's
stop
talk
doing
about
emotional
He's
shit.
not an MD
All right,
So
doctor.
let me just say this. So yeah, and then as far as how many people died from COVID, just, during that time, it's one thing that y'all never mentioned. How many people die from influenza, the regular flu, every year? It's thousands of people. They did not make no distinguish between if it was COVID or if it was just regular influenza, and that's the gaslighting